Welcome everyone to the second day of the IEEE-HKN Experience Conference. So yesterday we started the conference with a presentation on who moves the cheese. And if you are with us here today, our cheese is finding that position, that sought after job. And the maze is our journey to obtain this position. And so we don't want to be winding through that maze, but we want to effectively search for that prize, for that cheese. And you already know that you are exceptional because you are HKN. You are the Honor Society of IEEE. So our motto is scholarship, character, and attitude. And so how do we proceed and ensure that the employers know your worth? And today our reality is COVID. I'm sure everyone's heard so much about COVID and how it disrupted our lives, our livelihoods, our communities, and businesses worldwide. And so all employers, especially the global businesses, know they have to minimize the impact of the pandemic, not only on the public health, but to help limit its potential for more disruptions to our lives, to the economy, for around the world, and for us specifically for the potential to make money. So in light of all this, you're among the many who perhaps have just graduated or have now become unemployed because businesses have downsized, they have closed. We're all looking for a position. And so there is more of us in the job market. So here today, we have several industry colleagues of mine who's going to help provide you with some thoughts and insights on how to effectively conduct your job search. So I am your moderator. I'm Charlotte Blair. Before my day job, I am a technical support manager for ANSYS, and they are a global leader in simulation software and an EDA company for electronic design and automation. I am also HKN, hailing from Region 1. So everybody from Region 1, our meeting is Saturday with Jason. I'm specifically with the New York section. Born and raised in New Jersey, I got my bachelor's from Rutgers University and my master's and PhD in electrical engineering from NJIT. And also HKN, and with me is Leanna Nicholas. Leanna, please introduce yourself and give us your story.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm Leanna Nicholas. I was an HKN Alpha Chapter President at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign from 2013 to 2014. Since then, I've been working at ARM, which is a major company in the semiconductor industry, for the last 6 years. I'm now a senior design engineer there, working on ARM's Neoverse platforms, which are products that are aimed at server and infrastructure, networking infrastructure products. As I said, I was an HKN member. I've been through the whole job search. It's always really nerve-wracking as a student. And of course, this year, more so than any year before, it's just really, more difficult than it's ever been. But you guys have us to help guide you through it and give you some tips. So hopefully we'll be able to make the process a little bit easier. In particular, talking to my experience in this arena, I've helped out a lot with ARM's university recruiting in the past. And then I've also, on the side, been a career coach for a small company here in Austin called Locan Careers. So hopefully I can draw on that experience and help you guys get out there and find the jobs you want.
Thank you, Leanna. And Joseph. And Joseph is from Southern California, Edison. So first, let me thank you for being here and being able to make this panel in light of all the wildfire evacuations. We have many of our colleagues at ANSYS who are based in California who have been evacuated. So thank you for being able to be a part of this panel. And Joseph, if you could say a few words about yourself and your background.
I sure can. Thank you very much, Charlotte. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful activity. So I've been in recruiting for a number of years, originally out of the New York area myself, moved to California. I've been supporting Southern California Edison for 4 years now. Actually, my second tour of duty, as I tell people, because I was here for a year and a half on a contract doing, some of the gig economy type work, so I've had the opportunity to see Edison from a number of different perspectives. We are an engineering company. We're not just, as I always tell people, we're not just power poles and transmission lines. And so a lot of the work I do right now, I have a number of engineering positions I recruit for, as well as support for the wildfires, believe it or not. So I have a chance to do a good wide variety of things. So thank you for mentioning that, Charlotte. So my experience includes working with some great technical companies like Lucent Technologies, which is, Alcatel-Lucent today, and broken up into a number of different organizations. The one organization that we spun off is today LSI Logic. And then I work with QLogic organization. You'll see that in most of your devices have a QLogic chip or other device in it. So I've worked, hiring engineers for those organizations, including Encore Corporation, which does satellite communications, as well as they were really the first ones to actually have fiber to the home that you might know as FiOS. So I've had some really, really nice opportunity to work with recruiting engineers. So I'm here to help you, look for work, give you some ideas, some guidance, and I do career coaching on the side myself. So thank you very much, Charlotte. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Hey, Joe, maybe I actually worked with you in the past. So I used to work for the Alcatel part of Alcatel-Lucent in the New Jersey area for many years.
Oh, very good. Oh, very good. Yeah. Excellent. Look forward to having a conversation, a sidebar with you. So.
That's right. So anyway, so with us as well, this panel, as I said, is being sponsored by ANSYS. And with us from ANSYS is Nicole Haley and Natalie Bell. So Nicole, if you would say something about yourself and what you do at ANSYS.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Charlotte. So hi, everybody. My name's Nicole Haley. I'm dialed in from a little suburb outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I currently work at ANSYS. I am a manager in talent acquisition, and my focus is really on ANSYS's strategic initiatives in the talent acquisition space. So everything from university relations and internships and early career to how do we fold in our D&I strategy. So I'm really excited to be here today and to share some tips and tricks with you on conducting an effective job search. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Nicole. And Natalie?
Hi, everyone. It's very nice to meet you virtually. Thank you for joining the discussion today. I am Natalie Bell, and I am a colleague of Nicole's at ANSYS. I am the manager of talent acquisition for our North America team, and I have the privilege of leading recruitment efforts for all positions in the United States and Canada for ANSYS. I'm fairly new to ANSYS, but not new to recruitment. I have been in the recruitment space leading recruitment teams for the last 13 years, and prior to joining ANSYS, I was in healthcare. And healthcare is certainly challenging recruitment as well. So excited to bring that experience to the ANSYS team, and excited to be talking with all of you here today. I am also dialing in from right outside of Pittsburgh, where it is a rainy, gloomy day. So this is a bright spot of the afternoon for sure.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, thank you all to all our panelists here today. And as you heard, we have two folks who specifically on the side, because it's their interest, are as well career coaches. And so there are many stages in the job search, and today's session, we said, was focused on conducting that search. And one of the comments that I've heard from many colleagues are, I apply for a job and I don't hear from anybody. And that number I've heard has been as high as 75%, that resumes are not being read by anybody, or it's not being communicated that or acknowledged that their resumes have been received. And there could be several reasons why. And one of the things, perhaps it's not really being seen by a human resource person. So let me just start in the order of introductions with you, Leanna. So what is the most effective way to lead a job search now?
So I think you had a great point that when you have a personal connection with a job, it can really help you get a little bit further along in the process. When you're shooting out these online applications, I don't want to discourage you from applying online, because believe it or not, companies actually do look at those applications, especially these days with COVID. So that's not a dead end, but it's just helpful to push your application, that much further if you do have those connections. And in order to have those connections, you want to look at the people around you. So if you're a student, one of the most powerful allies that you might have in your job search is a professor that knows you well. Believe it or not, your professors have been working in these industries for years upon years, and they have really strong personal and professional networks of people at companies all over the place. Every PhD student that they've graduated, every other professor or working professional that they've met at a conference, they might actually have some really good people that they can connect you with. And so talking to your professor about your passions and what you want to work in might get you further than you think in terms of a connection with a possible job. Another place to look is your peers. I remember back when I was a student, we used to all crash in like the HKN student org office, and anytime somebody would be coming in, there was kind of an interview season, right? And so everybody would be coming off of these interviews, coming from the career fair and so on, and we'd all come chat about it afterwards. And that was a really, really useful learning experience for me. Now with COVID, I know you guys don't have a physical office that you can all, go huddle in, right? But you have to think of, okay, what's the digital equivalent to that? What can I make that will replace that sort of same experience? Maybe it's an ongoing Facebook chat with some of your friends, or maybe it's you just kind of have like a text group, and whenever somebody either hears back from a job about getting an interview, or gets out of an interview, or finally lands that offer, you want to make sure that you're kind of sharing love in terms of whenever somebody does get some either good or bad news, you kind of share it so that you can all learn from it. Another thing would be, do make sure that you utilize your university's career offices if you are still in school. If you're out of school, it starts to go a little bit more off script. There aren't so many set things that you can do, but you want to really start using professional networking tools like LinkedIn. If you want to find a job, this might be a great time to reconnect with some people you might have known from either past jobs or from your college experience. And never neglect the professional organizations that you're a part of. So as being part of HKN, you are also part of IEEE, and both of those organizations have not only events like this to help you learn about how to improve your job search, but also have professional conferences where people from all different companies and all different backgrounds are coming together. And if they just happen to find a great new recruit, that's a bonus. On top of that, a lot of those organizations or conferences will have a resume book involved. There's a conference for women in engineering called Grace Hopper that has a pretty, famous resume book that a lot of employers will look through. So look for opportunities like that to get your name and face out there to potential employers.
And I will selfishly mention that IEEE does have a Women in Engineering conference as well. I'm part of that, and definitely, that's another avenue of networking for us,
Absolutely.
Again, professional organizations, such as you mentioned with LinkedIn, that's a great resource. Nicole, I know that we use LinkedIn. If you could say a few words about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a huge fan of LinkedIn as a recruiter at heart, and it's just as valuable and impactful on the candidate side as well. You can utilize LinkedIn in a variety of ways. You can utilize it in your job search to network and market yourself, and you can use it to even just stay in the loop in what's going on with your industry. What are the trends? What's happening today? So I'll elaborate on those different areas just a little bit more. And really, they all kind of overlap with each other. So for one, you can search for jobs on LinkedIn. There's actually over 3 million jobs posted on LinkedIn today. So you should be using it to search when you initiate your job search. What's nice too is when you go to search for jobs on LinkedIn, LinkedIn will actually recommend jobs for you based on your profile. So based on your education level, your skills, your interests, they will recommend some potential opportunities for you. When you're applying to positions, I would recommend looking for individuals who are in that role today. So what is their experience? What do they have highlighted on their profiles? And this will really give you a first look into the type of candidates that that organization might be seeking to recruit. So that's a little trick that I've used myself in the past. Make sure to also keep your profile up to date. Be clear about skills, highlight your experience. To be totally transparent, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, to a lot of recruiters, you don't really exist. A lot of times that's our first go-to when it comes to sourcing talent. So you really want to make sure that as a professional, you have a profile and that it's professional. So a professional headshot, keep it all job and interest related. Charlotte, you mentioned earlier that you hear often that, candidates will apply to positions and they don't really hear anything back. Well, LinkedIn is a great tool to network and to connect. So my recommendation would be, if you're applying to a job that you're really interested in and you haven't heard anything back, you've given it a week or two, you still haven't heard anything, I would recommend looking for somebody in recruiting at that organization and reaching out. It's okay to reach out and introduce yourself, express interest in that organization, and just see if they can provide you an update on the status of your application. I personally, as a recruiter, do love that just because it shows that you've gone that extra step and you've taken that interest in reaching out to me personally. Leanna mentioned this a little bit, look for alumni to connect with, expand your network, be active, but be authentic. You really want to interact with others. The more active you are on LinkedIn, the more your profile will be known. People see when you share and like and comment and engage on things. So I would definitely recommend doing that. Data actually shows if you're reaching out to professionals on LinkedIn to do so after hours. That's actually when LinkedIn sees the highest utilization is after working hours. Just a couple of more things, and I'm very passionate about this tool, so apologies if I'm rambling a little bit. But there's another feature within LinkedIn where you can seek recommendations from past employers, professors, people you know. So spruce up your profile. If you made a really great impression during a recent internship, ask that manager on your way out the door to write you a recommendation on LinkedIn. That's one thing that as a recruiter, I always looked at as well. The final piece I want to touch on is the skills section. I love the skills section because that's how you can really tailor your profile so that it will populate in specific searches. So when recruiters search for candidates to source and reach out to you on LinkedIn when we have open jobs, we do search by title and keywords. And you want to think of your skills section as a keyword section. So what do I want to put in here that will bring me to the top of the list when a recruiter conducts a specific search in my space? And what's nice is LinkedIn actually allows you to put up to 50 keywords in your profile. So you don't have to worry about, spamming up your summaries and your job experiences. You can really build a lot of those keywords in to your skills section. And doing these things, a combination of them will make you, an all-around more attractive candidate in the search.
I like what you said, though, Nicole, that to be active and to be authentic. And so one of the things that I do is I do participate in interviews, and that authenticity, you could write down your resume, but please be authentic. Don't elaborate or, exaggerate your skill sets. So I think, having those endorsements on LinkedIn is a very positive thing for us to look at as well. And I know probably LinkedIn is not the only game in town. And Joe, you said you've been in this field for a while, and you were on the East Coast and you're on the West Coast. So what other tools would you suggest us to look at?
Yeah, for sure, Charlotte. Thank you so very much. And I can verify what Nicole was talking about earlier here, because I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. It's one of my one of the tools. I was an early adopter in it, and helped to develop it actually a little bit earlier on. So it's been a fun tool. So I want to mirror some of the things that were said earlier before I launch into some other places to search. There were things about talking to your professor as a recruiter, especially an engineering recruiter. One of the things that I've done a number of times, especially when the job market is very tight, I will actually call professors. I'll find their information online. A lot of universities will have their contact information. I'll email them or call them and say, what students do you know, recent graduates, earlier graduates that have called you, said they're looking for work, looking for guidance, can you share that with me? So that is one of the things that you can do, is really keep in contact with your network in engineering. Another thing is to actually post, post maybe some of your research that's allowable to be posted, so that you could show that you've done a number of things to support, and you're going to show the support in the education and what you have. So it's really, really critical. So some of the places that you could actually look, there's engineering sites, engineeringjobs.com. I don't find that as a recruiter to be all that curated for me. It doesn't always get the results that I want, but it is a good place because recruiters will search there. So that means that there isn't a lot of individuals that actually go there. So that's a good place to go. Your university's network. If your university has a career site, make sure that you go back, and even if you graduated a while back, to actually join that career site, because we use a number of different career sites to search. There's also Indeed. There's Glassdoor. There's Monster and Career Builder, which people are using less and less because Indeed and Glassdoor and Simply Hired are consolidators. So they'll put those jobs that are there, so people might go directly to Indeed and post. And then LinkedIn, they actually scrub and actually draw positions into their site. So if you're looking, those are places to look. So those are a number of things that you can do, is create a profile. And the question was asked earlier about not being seen. One of the things is especially at a time like this, since there's so many people looking for work, is to apply early. And you can't do that on the first job you apply at a company necessarily, but apply early and then create an alert. Because most of the applicant tracking systems have alerts on them. So you can create an alert so that you can be alerted that a similar job comes up. And we also have a career network, and you get prompted to join the career network after you apply. And that's another way of being noticed in our company. So join career networks and create a profile there if you can. And another thing to do, so you'll be notified when jobs come up in the career network. We use that as one of our, contact management tool. It's like in sales, people have a contact management tool. So they go back and they find their resources. Who's my contact? And we use that for the same purposes as here's individuals that have developed a relationship with us as well already. They're interested in us as a company. We've promoted our positions. We've done a really good job of that. Now we're going to be able to maintain that conversation with you and continue to talk with you and try to engage in the conversation. So you want to join career networks on companies where they have them and create alerts there as well. That's really critical to be noticed. And then sometimes you're going to need to change your resume slightly, for the job. So take a look at what the job says on it, what the requirements are. And if you have those, your career reflects those requirements, you want to make sure that that's in your resume so that it doesn't get overlooked. So that's very important to have a core resume and be able to take from that and add, delete, whatever, where you can. So those are critical as well. And you can do a Boolean search on who's hiring now on Google. You can do a search, even LinkedIn has continual feeds and articles. And then you also want to present yourself in LinkedIn by possibly making statements to get yourself out there all the time and to comment on other people's posts and actually create your own post or have things that be a social influencer to some degree so that you get yourself out there. There are a number of different things that are going on in research that shows that you're on the cutting edge and you're going to stay there. Charlotte?
So those are some good suggestions. So you're saying that we have to really have some sort of digital platform of ourselves, have a digital profile. And some of us as engineers are not as prone to be so open to let the whole world know who you are. So, keeping your profile very professional on LinkedIn or whatever career format that you're going to use. So with everyone being out there, Natalie, how would you pick someone besides the person who's always constantly, or the person who is coming back to you and saying, hey, did you see my resume? Is there really a job opening? When can we talk? Besides the proactive person, how else can you stand out?
A really important question, Charlotte. Thank you for asking it. I read in a study that was done once, and it was published in Time magazine, and it was a study that the Ladders, which is a job search company, actually did. And they found that recruiters spend an average of 6 seconds looking at a resume. So, that means that you have less than 10 seconds for your resume to actually make an impression when you're applying to a job. And sometimes with some of the new recruitment technology that exists out there, a human might not even be looking at your resume. It might be a technology that is skimming your resume or your application for keywords. So I think there's a few things that you can do to stand out. And while I absolutely appreciate professional persistence, there are some things that you can do that when you're applying to jobs or submitting your resume to someone that will clearly allow you to stand out amongst the pile. And some of my advice would be that I think probably one of the most important things that you can do is actually to customize your resume based on the job that you're applying to. I think it's great if you have a template and you have a resume that you are kind of consistently working off of, but that every job, every company is looking for something slightly different. And it's important that you are highlighting those things that you have that make you a great match for that job in that resume when you're applying for that specific opening. And I think that it's important that you are clearly calling those things out. There are a lot of people that I've talked to where I say like, hey, I didn't see this experience on your resume. And they say like, oh yeah, I have that. I just thought it was implied because that was the type of job that I have. And certainly nothing is implied. It's important to specifically call out those really important skills that you have. I think the second thing that I would recommend is that I have heard and I've talked to a lot of different recruiters, and there's a lot of conflicting information out there about how long your resume should actually be. And a lot of you have probably heard that rule of thumb that your resume should not be longer than 1 page. My personal thought on that is that I'm really less concerned about the length of your resume than I am about the content. And I absolutely encourage you to make sure that your resume is really clear and really concise and that you're not rambling. But I would certainly rather see all of your fantastic relevant experience than see you leave something really important off because you're trying to fit it to 1 page. And I think, again, that is something that I see a pitfall that people will fall into. My last bit of advice would be to make sure that you're sharing your accomplishments on your resume. There are so many resumes that I've read that read exactly like a job description. Here is exactly what I was responsible for. A lot of people, I think, have just copied and pasted their responsibilities for past jobs into their resume. And while I absolutely appreciate knowing and understanding what you did in your role, I'm really interested in understanding what makes you stand out amongst the crowd. So was there a major problem that you solved? Did you win an award? Did you significantly reduce spend at your company due to a process or a technology that you created? Make sure that you are sharing those successes as a part of your resume. The last thing that I would mention is just a really tactical thing. Make sure that your contact information is very clearly stated on your resume. I've had a number of people that I have looked at resumes of, and they're so focused on content that they'll forget to include that information, or it won't be clear on their resume, and I'm trying to hunt down this person that looks like a great fit for the job, but I can't figure out how to get in touch with them. So I think contact information, your phone number, an active email address is important. And on the email address note, make sure it's an email address that is appropriate for you to have on a professional resume. There's been some interesting email addresses that I've emailed over my time to try to get in touch with great candidates.
So Natalie, do you see a difference in the resumes from engineers versus non-engineers?
It's a good question. I think that I do see differences, and I think it's really that technical piece and the technical skills, and again, being able to actually describe what your technical expertise has been able to do for an organization ties back to my point about making sure that you're celebrating your successes. But again, making sure that your technical resume is not assuming that a recruiter that's on the other end of it will know exactly what it is that you did and why you are a great fit for this position. Sometimes you do need to spell it out. And then you're able to have a more technical conversation with the hiring manager once you actually get in front of that person.
So as engineers, and we're looking for very specific functions, so say a graduating student, and they don't have any professional experience just yet, would you recommend them listing their engineering classes, like what they took, like what courses?
Absolutely. So recognizing that you may not have a ton of experience, but maybe you have internships and those types of things, that's great experience to make sure you're including there. I also think that, with your education, you have an opportunity to do some pretty cool stuff while you're in school. So if there are projects that you work on, real life experiences that you've had as a part of your program, opportunities that you've had to work with companies as a part of your learning, then highlight those things. That is really, really important to help you show that what you are learning in the books, what you're learning in the classroom is something that you are able to translate to real life. So including your classes is important, but also including some of the coursework that you've actually done. I worked on a project that was modeling something specific, and let me help you understand what we accomplished as a part of that project is a great way to highlight that experience.
Okay, so let me ask that a similar question to you, Joe. That in your experience, how can an electrical engineer have their resume float up to the top? What should they do?
Thank you, Charlotte. Yeah, I was actually nodding my head when Natalie was talking here. So there was a lot of really good content there. So I think highlighting again, looking at the job description and making sure you talk to the job description. So when you see a job posting, you actually answer the questions in your resume. I was actually going to write a note here. You got a resume versus your CV. And I would really like to recommend that you have your CV as your core, but make sure you identify the things on the job description and actually talk to it, actually highlight those things. So recently I was looking for an engineer, and we were looking for somebody who was doing firmware type of work. So that was a keyword search that I used to identify, using our ATS, our applicant tracking system. I identified probably 10 highly qualified candidates that all got reviewed from the hiring manager. We interviewed 8 of them, which is highly, typically that is not a typical thing for engineering roles. But in this, I guess in this environment it is. So we interviewed, 8, we made an offer, and the person was perfect for the role. So this is, it's really good to make sure that you address those things on your resume. Try to, have those, because we search through the database. We use keywords just like I do when I do a keyword search or a Boolean search on LinkedIn or some other tool, we will use those same search mechanisms when we have a large group of resumes and everybody's identifying that they self-identify that they have all the qualifications, but sometimes they don't. They don't have firmware, but they say they do. And if it's not on your resume, it's critical that you do put it on because you don't want to be overlooked. So, you know, of course, that's a small detail. So, but those are ways that you can do it. Make sure that you're addressing all of those things on your resume when you apply.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I'll have to say, you know, vetting those qualities, like you say, making sure, like if you put that you have firmware experience, please be sure that you do, right? I mean, I don't know what's more frustrating is because you spent the time, you know, looking at that resume, looking up the person, and then finding out that that's not totally truthful.
Right, right.
I mean, the last
and
thing
I think
you probably want to do is piss off the recruiter, right?
Well, yeah, we don't get ticked off, especially since we're trying to help as much as we can, right? So I think we're trying to highlight and get to the right person. So we always look at, you know, hiring in, not screening out. That's I think the classic way of doing talent acquisition is to try to screen in and not screen out. We're not looking to pick people out. We want to find that right person, and we have to do it in a positive, proactive way all the time. You know, so. So those are critical things to do. So, you know, and one thing was mentioned earlier about, you know, the projects that you've worked on. You know, one of the things that I do ask in a screening interview, if somebody has specific is a new grad, you know, sometimes even for newer positions or even recent, you know, maybe 1 year experience is required for some reason. I ask, what projects have you worked on? Outline for me the projects. If those projects are on your resume and they talk to the job opening, it's really critical because I typically will ask, what projects have you worked on and what was your part in the project? And so we look at it in a number of different ways, you know, because we're looking at a multifaceted individual. So we're looking at your ability to communicate, your ability to lead, and of course your technical prowess. So those would be the things that we're looking at. And I want you to be able to describe specifically what you've done, how you've done it, and what your impact was.
That's very true. That is so true. Leanna, what do you think?
In terms of how to make your application stand out, I think we've already hit on a lot of the important points. Just kind of look at the job description and take as much of the verbiage, and if they look like they're asking for specific skills, definitely make sure that those are highlighted. Another thing that I think is kind of a nice trick is make sure you realize, so I can't remember who it was, someone mentioned that in the first 6 seconds, a recruiter will make a decision about your resume, and you have to think about how the human eye reads through a page. So we typically read top down, so make sure the most important stuff is towards the top. The stuff that's most relevant to the job that you're applying to is towards the top. Also, you want to consider things like, if you've been out of school for 5-10 years, it's probably time to start moving your education towards the bottom because it's less important than your recent work experience. And then when you have bullet points describing your job, you often want to think about kind of the first two and maybe the last one, because people are kind of like, oh, I'm skimming the first little bit and then I'm going to look at the end. Have those first couple be like really those highlights of your biggest accomplishments from the last couple years in school or at that job. And then the stuff in the middle can be the stuff that you still want to communicate, but it's a little bit lower priority.
Yeah, so I'm hearing here from everybody is, you know, the 6 seconds that we're only think through the top or picking out keywords. And if you're writing a resume, it'll take you hours or even days to go over and review and him and haw about it. And so, you know, when it gets to the point where it's finished and you're sending it off, you only have that 10 seconds to have your resume be highlighted and say, give me that position. You know, so that resume writing is, you know, it was important 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It seems to be, you know, whether it's written or it's on a digital platform, it is the it's a view into you, your first pass, your first impressions that makes most precedence here. And so, with that, it's, I want to make sure that everyone knows you're in this for years. It's not just your search for a job. It's a search for a career. It's something especially now, it's something you're going to do the majority of the time of your wake hours, right? Everybody's at home right now. So, there's a very fine line between, relaxation and working, because you're always online. You're doing something. So, make sure that what you're searching for is in line with what you want to do, is what you personally want to do. It's not just for making money, right? It is, it is a career. It is something that you're going to do for a long time. And one of the things that we didn't touch on was the topic of reskilling and being re-educated. As we have a presentation that is following later on today about what are the top trends that are going on in engineering right now. And so, to be important and to make sure that you're relevant, we may have to reskill ourselves. And again, put that up on the top, right, so that the recruiters are seeing those keywords, so that you can see it. Again, it's a lifelong thing. It's not just a job that you're going to from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. Anyway, with that, Regina, is there any questions in the Q&A?
Hi, Charlotte. It's Stacy Bersani, and yes, we do have some questions. So, are you ready?
Yes, we are. Panelists, I'm hoping I'm answering for you.
Okay. We talked a lot about having 6 seconds. So, in those 6 seconds reading of the resume, what usually takes a person into or out of consideration for job positions?
So to me, and I think it talks to what Joseph already mentioned, it comes down to those key skills. So like, for example, in my current position, a lot of what we need, especially a new graduate coming out of college to know, is just some basic hardware description language. So something like VHDL or Verilog. And if I look through your resume and I don't see any mention of those, I'm probably going to say, ooh, they probably don't know enough to kind of get through our interviews. And at that point, they're ruled out. So having certain key skills is really important to at least get through that first filter, I think.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, as a recruiter, one thing Natalie mentioned was making sure that your resume aligns with the job description. So one of the first things we screen out as well are those minimum qualifications. And those are the minimum requirements or skills a candidate must have to adequately fulfill the role. So often that's the first thing that we look for in regards to, education and experience as well, just to add to that.
Are you ready for the next question, everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bring it on.
Okay. This person graduated 2 years ago from college and has been working in a field that I'm no longer interested in. I'm looking to make an early career switch to a job that's more related to the field I studied in college, but I'm not sure how to make my resume stand out, especially when I don't have the experience in the field I want to enter.
Ooh, could I take this one, Stacy?
Yes, you may.
Sure. So in the work that I do on the side as a career coach, this is something that I encounter all the time. I get people wanting to make way more dramatic career changes than you might think. It's someone who is a hairdresser that's out of work due to COVID and they want to do something totally different in like a professional office environment or, just something completely outside their wheelhouse. And so if people can make big transitions like that, and what you're looking at is just going from maybe one subfield of electrical or computer engineering to another, you'd be surprised how much transferable skill set you have. And so transferable skills really are the key. What you want to do is you want to look at the job descriptions for some of those jobs that you're, dreaming of, the ones that you're like, oh man, I don't like what I'm doing now, but this is what I want to do. Take a few of those job descriptions, sift through, and I know it can be discouraging when you see a bunch of things that you don't have. You see a bunch of specific technical stacks that you might not be familiar with, but I almost guarantee you that, like, reading between the lines, there will be some things that you do already have, whether that's soft skills like being a good team leader and so on, or even more so, I think it's important to realize the technical skills that might span across kind of industries. So something like being able to write well in certain scripting languages will come in handy in a variety of different job fields that electrical and computer engineers can work in. So as much as possible, look for those transferable skills and make sure those are highlighted. So highlight, the bullets on your resume should be all about those transferable skills. The highlights that you draw out from your university education, because I think you mentioned you're only 2 years out of school, draw out everything that has to do with that new position, and de-emphasize some of that stuff that doesn't really have to do with the new field that you want to get into. So those would be some of my top hints. I'm wondering if any of the other panelists want to weigh in.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The only other thing that I would recommend is really thinking about the types of roles that you are targeting. And a lot of times when you get to a certain point of your career, you say, okay, the next step for me is a senior level, whatever it is. And if you are making a pretty drastic change, it might mean that you need to make a lateral move and be okay with that, rather than becoming the manager of the department in a completely different field. And, that's something that I think that you need to consider and you need to think about, and you need to ensure that when you're applying to jobs, that they're appropriate jobs, so that someone says, I could see how that skill set would transfer, rather than saying, like, I have no idea why this person would be putting their hat in the ring for this particular position. Joe, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, we don't have a way to raise our hand. So no problem. Thank you. I think one of the things is that transferable skills was the first thing I wrote down. So I think we're all on that same page. But what's trending? I think we need research on what's trending, where things are going, because there's all kinds of new technology. Technology is always moving forward. That's what I love about doing technical recruiting, because it's always engaging me, and I'm always having to learn more. Even though I'm not a technical person, I have some capability in it, and I get it, and I can talk to it. But for me, it's exciting because, like for instance, with Edison, and I'm not promoting Edison here necessarily, but we have things with transportation, electrification. And we have home electrification, and we have things where we're saving energy, and we're constantly improving those deliverables and making sure that they work and they work well. And then if you look at the Charlotte mentioned earlier, the World Economic Forum, there's places there where you can actually do some research and find out what's trending, what's next, what's coming over the next 5 to 10 years. And then you're going to take a look at it was mentioned earlier, soft skills, your hard skills, your management skills, because there's a number of different ways that you can go. And then you can start targeting the education that you want to target. For instance, if you want to develop your management expertise to be able to work with financials and things like that, you might want to go to a good MBA program and start thinking about it. And things like that, or develop your ability to work with customers. If that's what your passion is, or management per se. So if you want to develop your management skills and your leadership skills, you have to actually take a look at yourself, evaluate yourself, talk to your network, professors as well, because they have a good idea of what's going on in industry. They have to stay ahead of those things. So make sure that you are, keeping touch with your network, and get some advice, get someone to talk to you about what's happening, what's trending, what the future is, what you enjoy vis-a-vis what you're doing now.
Yeah, let me just say that really works. So if I went just by education, I went to school for power systems so that I could work at Con Edison in New York City. I did not know, being very naive coming out of school, that meant, lots of travel and midnight shifts, midnight to 8 a.m. shifts, because that's when, maintenance and facilities were working. And so within the first year of my career, I made a dramatic change. I went from power systems more towards high technology, which is where I'm at now as well. But the only way I could do that was, one, I went back to school and I said, let me go on and take on more studies. And then because I knew, now that I knew better, I started networking and getting more involved in professional associations like IEEE. So the networking, getting more education, and, emphasizing those skills so that, you put that on, like, we said, put that on the top of your resume. So those are the first things that you're going to see. No one said that it had to be in chronological order, right? Just put the keywords there that are specific to the job that you're looking for. No one's going to look real, they're not going to just focus on dates. Okay.
Are we ready for the next one?
Next.
We have something, and we've all been dancing and talking about soft skills, communication, leadership, etc. What do you look for in terms of them in a resume, and any keywords that should be used to describe these things?
I look for people who are like, oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll go. I look for people who have things like past HKN board member. In my opinion, with a lot of things like this, it's better to kind of show, not tell. So I don't want to just see a laundry list of soft skills on your resume. Great communicator, blah, blah, blah. I want to see what you've done with those soft skills. So whether it's that you've been a board member of something like HKN or IEEE or whatever other professional organizations there might be at your school or your place of employment, or whether it's a when we're talking about the workplace, where you've really taken on a leadership role in terms of the team that you work with, that you've led a project. On the resources page that is associated with this presentation, I actually have a link to an article from the Muse that has a bunch of action verbs that you can use in your resume. A lot of those are a really great way to start a bullet point that highlights, whether it's like leadership ability or communication, management of stakeholders, whatever that case may be. You just want to find a way to highlight that in the context of your past experience.
I would completely agree with that. I have seen a lot of resumes where at the very top they say, I am a great communicator, I am hardworking, I am loyal. I'm like, great. But actually show me, how that has translated in your role. And I agree with all of those things. Being able to show that you held a leadership role, that you volunteered your time, that you're a fit with the company's culture is important, that you actually show how you've been able to do that.
And I remember someone mentioned that, look at the company and people who've worked in those companies to see what other, what their interests are, because a cultural fit, I think, is a very important point, because you know what, you're going to work with these individuals and there is a company culture and you want to make sure you fit in. And whether, whether you're a leader, or you want to be part of a group, we're engineers. We're born to be leaders. We're thinking out of the box as it is. So we don't have to be like our colleague, but we have to get along. So the soft skills are very important. Leadership roles, you don't have to be a group manager. You could be a manager of, individual contributors, but to have it stand out in your resume, but you could say it just within my company or the professional organization, whether, you were the chair or the vice chair, or just you've been a member for so many years. I think that is a very, we want someone who is very well-rounded.
Okay, we have about 3 minutes left in this session. Did you want to try to tackle one more question, or did you have any closing thoughts you wanted to share?
Well, first off, I want to thank all our panelists, because they have taken their time out of their professional day to help, prepare for this panel and to speak. So I do want to say thank you to everybody and, to our audience, you are already, like I said in the beginning, you're already successful. You are HKN. We know you have the foundation that needs to be successful. Now just get the attitude going and making sure that the others are aware of it. You've already gone forward on your journey towards getting that successful job. And it really is fun out there. And I'm sure the panelists, besides myself, feel free to reach out to us, ask us questions. Again, ANSYS is sponsoring this session, and we have many job openings. Feel free to reach out and look on our career page and see what openings may be appropriate for yourself. And definitely a shout out to all of the IEEE-HKN staff, Stacy, Patience, you are the program manager. I know you'll be a lot going on for the next few days, and as well as to Nancy. Again, thank you very much.